It was like a dream come true. The dream of building the most magnificent airplane of all time. A symbol of luxury, elegance and speed. The Concorde was the only aircraft from whose window passengers could see the curvature of the Earth. It covered the distance between New York and London in less than 3 hours, so that the company's elite could celebrate the New Year first in Europe and then again in North America. But all that is history nowadays, and the beautiful aircrafts are just museum exhibits. In fact, it was all due to one single black day, the 25th of July 2000. These pictures of the Concorde burning over Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris took the world by surprise and essentially marked the end of this legendary aircraft. But let's tell the story one step at a time. In the 1960s, the British Aircraft Corporation and the French Cit Aviation began to independently develop a supersonic transport aircraft. But it soon became clear, this ambitious project was beyond the power of a single manufacturer. On November 29, 1962, the two companies signed an agreement for joint development. The governments of both countries also entered the project and the costs were split 50-50. The British were to construct the airframe, the French the wings and the deck itself. The two sides also agreed at the beginning on the name of the new aircraft, which would be Concorde. The Concorde took 7 years to develop and build. The first flight of the prototype, numbered 001, was scheduled for the 2nd of March 1969. The pilot André Turcat, accompanied by 2 other crew members, sat behind the controls. The Concordes rolled down the runway and its takeoff were watched with an anxiety and excitement that was reminiscent of the first attempts of the aviation pioneers at the beginning of the century. Only when the aircraft returned safely to the ground after 28 minutes did the Cit Aviation factory airport in the southern French city of Toulouse erupt with excitement. While there are still a long 7 years to go before regular service, the dream of a plane that will link continents in record time is now within reach. The world's largest airlines have begun ordering Concorde for their fleets. British Airways was the first to sign up for 5 aircrafts, followed shortly by Air France, which wanted 4. Followed by Pan Am, Lufthansa and Air Canada. The total number of orders was close to 80. But then came the first strike. The 1970s brought the oil crisis coupled with a drastic increase in fuel prices, and as the supersonic Concorde was by no means an economical aircraft, the initial enthusiasm quickly faded and airlines began to cancel orders. On January 21, 1976, the first commercial flights took off. Air France flew a plane from Paris to Rio de Janeiro, British Airways from London to Bahrain. It was a great success even then, but airline interest in supersonics didn't take off. In addition to expensive operation, the U.S. aviation authorities' decisions not to allow Concorde stops at some U.S. airports has contributed to this. They said it was due to excessive noise. In the end, only 16 Concorde production units were produced. Yet those who had the opportunity to travel in them will never forget the experience. The flight from Paris to New York took 3.5 hours instead of the usual 8.5. The comfort on board was stunning. There was only one class and that was first class. The food was served by the cabin crew on porcelain plates. Silver-plated cutlery was standard. Whenever the Concorde broke supersonic speed, the stewardesses handed out champagne to the passengers. At the airports from which the supersonics took off, there were food preparation facilities for Concorde only. Passengers were checked in without waiting, and Concorde had priority for takeoff and landing. As a result, It was never delayed, and the view from the window was also breathtaking, as the flight level was a whopping 11 miles. But then comes the tragic day, 25th of July, 2000, and Air France Concorde prepares for flight AF4590 from Paris to New York, rolling down the runway, then accelerating for takeoff. But just before it lifts off the ground, a tire explodes. The ejected parts pierce the electrical cable of the left landing gear and the lower part of the left wing, where one of the fuel tanks is located. Fuel starts to leak out and ignites. In a moment, the whole wing is in flames. The takeoff can no longer be stopped. Aircraft has exceeded the critical speed on the runway. The pilot's only option is to take off, turn around, and attempt an emergency landing. He can't do it. The defect is too big. Just a minute after takeoff, the Concorde crashes into a hotel in the town of Gonesse, near Paris. 100 passengers, 9 crew members and 4 people in the wreckage of the hotel do not survive the tragedy. It is a huge shock for the whole world. Concorde was considered not only the fastest and most comfortable, but also extremely safe. Air France stops all Concorde flights immediately after the crash, and British Airways responds the same way. Investigation is fully underway into what exactly may have caused the crash. For example, there is speculation of a badly lowered landing gear, but investigators soon come to a different conclusion. The tire was torn by a metal part that fell off a Continental Airlines plane on the runway. That had taken off just moments before. The airport staff simply didn't notice. It took 16 months for the Concorde flights to be brought back after many design changes. British engineers reinforced the fuel tank walls. The French developed more stable tires. The manufacturers invested 100 million euros in innovation. But the legend was only revived for a short time. These images are too deeply imprinted in people's memories. The air crisis following the September 11 attacks was the final blow to Concorde's fate. The very last flight from New York landed at London's Heathrow Airport in October 2003, and tens of thousands of people came to see it. Queen Elizabeth even had her Windsor Castle lit up as a tribute to Concorde, which is a rare event that usually only happens on very significant national occasions, and many people not only in Britain and France but around the world felt the nostalgia we usually associate with the passing of a person and not a transport vehicle.